The trash talk. I saw a little bit of stuff up on Twitter last night. Would you qualify that as trash talk? What's going on between you and Hendo?
Just minorly.
What do you think of what do you think of what he put up when he put up a picture of someone laying on the ground?
Just trying to talk a little crap. So just got to show the picture of a broken arm because that's what's going to happen if he's not careful.
Do you like the trash talk element of it? And is Dan any good at it? Dan's not too bad at it, not too great either. And no, I don't really like it, but sometimes guys talk about trash. It's just fun, just messing around. It can be fun playing around. And is that what it is between you guys? I mean, you guys really don't dislike each other.
No, we've always got along. It's just you can have to fight up a little bit and build it up, and we don't particularly like each other right now, but we've always been friends in the past. I don't really care for Dan right now, and we don't fight him. So I'm not looking at the guy as my friend. I'm looking at him as the enemy. But I'm sure most likely after the fight we'll be friends again.
You mentioned it's part of the job, but how hard is it to, especially, you've got some big fights on this card to kind of carve out your own niche. How hard is it to try to, drum up some of that heat, or do you just let your fight do the talking?
I usually let my fight do the talking. It's hard for me to, it's not really my style to go out there and make up a bunch of crap and talk a bunch of stuff. So I usually don't try that hard. I think it just looks too fake. So
yeah,
I'll do a little talking here and there, some little jabs, try to be funny about it. But it is not my nature. I think I'll come across more like an idiot. So I figure there's no reason to try too hard.
Now that said, do you feel pressure though to do it? Because you can see it. Will you admit maybe it's hurt you a little bit? They showed Dan in the promos. There's a lot of attention on the fights that are leading into your fight. I know you don't want to do something that's unnatural, but can you admit in some ways, because you're not a loudmouth, maybe it holds you back a little bit in terms of promotion?
Yeah, definitely. There are times we think, hey, maybe you should go out there and say a bunch of stuff that's not natural and try to act like an idiot. But again, it's hard for me to do that, so I just try to do myself. And I think eventually, we'll go out there and beat the crap out of Dan. I think that'll do the talking for me.
Yeah, ultimately that's what gets you fights. It's funny, I was talking to Gray Maynard the other day. I went over to the gym and did a video with him, and he actually admitted, that he's probably not going to get a rematch. Or excuse me, yeah, it is a rematch actually. He won the first fight, but he's not going to get the Edgar fight next because he hasn't done enough to promote and get out there. And he said, from his background, the wrestling world, he just wasn't used to that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's hard to get used to, especially for some people it's easier. Some people are naturally big, loudmouth talkers. Other people, not really their style. But it works both ways, too. Some of the most popular fighters, guys like Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell, GSP aren't talkers either. I think sometimes it just takes them longer to get the hard fan base. But I think once they get their fan base, the fan base sticks with them a lot more compared to the guys that, like Tito and stuff that are always talking trash, because the fan base will turn their back on them once they start losing.
Okay. Now that said, we mentioned to start the interview, Henderson puts out a picture of someone laying there on their back, and that's Jake. He's called you a boring fighter. It is a challenge, right, to stay within your game and not try to do things that are outside your game to be exciting, because I do think fighters fall prey to that.
Yeah, I definitely. You do want to go out there and you got your style of fighting, but you also want to go out there and entertain the fans. So you definitely have to fill into both.
Talking to Jake Shields as he's getting ready for a CBS main event against Dan Henderson. So Henderson's game itself, is he weak against submissions? Have we not really seen him tested in a long time, defending submissions?
Yeah, I think, I don't think he sucks at defending submissions. I think it's definitely his weakest point. He's been submitted several times before. Anderson Silva submitted him, Nogueira, I believe, been submitted one other time. So if you just have the weakness, it would definitely be submissions, which is my strongest point. So I'm definitely trying to put him on his back.
Against Silva, he really didn't seem to defend too well on the ground. And Anderson's a solid submission fighter, if he gets you into position. Was that more of a position thing? Or?
It looked like Dan just gave up in that situation. He tapped too easy. I don't really know why. Maybe he was hurt from punches. Maybe he didn't want to fight Silva anymore. But, I watched that fight several times. And, Silva had a good choke, but Dan didn't even really try to fight it. He just let him, once he took his back, he just laid there and tapped out, which is the only thing I think of. He must have been hurt from the punches, or maybe he just felt like he didn't want to fight Silva anymore. Because I know Dan Henderson had to have a little bit of submission defense, and he pretty much showed none in that fight.
I want to get into the storyline. I know you've addressed this a lot, but I wanted to throw a couple of questions at you about the whole, Strikeforce and contract deal. On Dana's comments, because I was sitting in front of him when he said this stuff, I think it was in Denver, and he threw it out that this is your last fight, and they're trying to screw you. Do you feel like they're trying to screw you by giving you a fight on CBS against Dan Henderson?
Yeah, no, I think a main event on CBS, I can't complain at all. It's a huge opportunity for me. Would I like to see him win? Maybe, I don't know, but this is a huge opportunity for me as well. So I don't look at it as a bad thing at all.
Yeah. Did Dana put you in a bad position by coming out and saying that stuff?
No, I don't think so. He just, he always speaks his mind. That's his opinion. I think that's what he's thinking their plans are. He's speaking his mind. I don't think it's bad at all.
Well, I mean, I guess the flip side of it is you could also look at it and kind of, as the fighter, a guy who's going to have a contract negotiation coming up, you could actually be thankful to Dana for basically saying that, you're valuable and maybe there'll be a bidding war. So I guess it puts you in a good position.
Exactly. I looked at it more like that. Like I'm saying, I'm someone who's wanted. So I think it's a good thing.